Hey, Giovanni here, and finally, after a lot of work, I can show you how the progress is going on the Tomb Raider 3 HD Remaster. This is my favorite game of the franchise, and I've been working on this project since October of 2018. Yeah, 2 years of development already. Of course, I'm not working every day on the project. I can work only on my spare time, and when I feel motivated to do it. I have learned so much since the first release of the project in 2018. When I published the first level of the South Pacific Coastal Village. I made this level as an experiment to see if I can do a good job at remastering the textures, and I like the results, so I continue working on the next levels of the South Pacific area and released them to the fans. And with the awesome feedback that I received from the Tomb Raider community, I felt motivated to do the remaster of the whole game. So I got back to the beginning levels of the game in India and started remastering the textures of the jungle level. After that, I did the temple ruins, river dungeons, and so on. In the meantime, with a lot of research, I learned so much about how the game's engine works, and with a lot of tools available from the awesome Tomb Raider community, I discovered that I could do much more than just replace textures. I learned how to fix texture misplacement and distortions, how to improve the static lighting of the game, how to add new details to the environment. So at this point I can share with you a fully remastered level of the game, with a lot of improvements that makes the game fresh again. The project right now is in a much better state than the released remastered textures of the South Pacific levels. I mean, a lot better. So, what you see in this video is how the final game will look, and the jungle level work as a playground for me, to learn and experiment with new things. And this level will work as a base for the quality of the next levels of the game. So, without any further ado, let's see how the game looks. And here we are, at the first level of the game, Jungle, where I will show you all the improvements in this new remastered version of the game. And right behind Lara, we can see that we have something different. In the original game, right here, we have a plain wall with leaves textures, and now we have more details, with additional planes of leaf textures and some planes in between, forming a parallax effect that gives more immersion and the sense that Lara came from the forest behind into the beginning of the level. This idea came from Bob Smulders, a not big Tomb Raider fan that helped me out improving various aspects of this level, as some new details to the Lara's 3D model that now do not have cube hands anymore. He also added some details to the level's geometry and made some bug fixes in the level's lighting, which I improved upon later to reflect the new lighting come from the new level's horizon. So I wanted to give a big thanks to Bobby for his work. So let's go down this slope to see what we have ahead of us. As you can see, the dirt slope texture is very similar to the original game. I tried as much as possible to maintain the original design made by Car Design. But some changes to other textures design was inevitable to have a convincing look with improved resolution and details added to this remaster. Some new textures were added, as these ground textures where Lara is sitting. In the original game, this region has the same texture from the slope, and now we have a more immersive look in this region, with the texture being more integrated with the environment. Dead leaves and fallen branches is what we can expect in the ground of a jungle, especially below big trees like this one. From here, we also can notice a tiny bit of the new horizon, with these beautiful sunrise colors. Later on, I can show much more of this new vista. The texture design was much more improved since my released texture spec for the South Pacific levels, where the texture was just a plain image. Now all the textures have 3D effects baked into them, like bump mapping that gives a great sense of depth, as you can notice on the beautiful notches in the temple walls right ahead. I can show better this new feature later on. For now, let's just go ahead to the swamp area, that has been heavily improved. New textures were added to this area, like this texture that I'm using to vary the level's ground textures. In the original game, right here, we had the same earth texture as seen here. This new texture also appears on the other side, giving more visual appeal and variation to this area. Also, the swamp texture was replaced for a muddy texture. In the original game, there's no variation on the earth texture of this area and the swamp texture. Another improvement on this area is that now we can see proper 3D models for the trunks on the floor. where in the original game were just flat polygons with textures applied to them. And now we can admire the new Skybox that is an enormous improvement compared to the vanilla version of the game. I made this image from scratch in a 3D software to match my vision for this level. The sky is 3-dimensional. Every angle that you look at, you will see a different vista. In the original game, we had just a texture of some mountains that was repeated several times around the level, and a plain color on the sky. Now, look at this. See how immersive and integrated to the game this new sky looks. To better represent the rainy weather of the level, I made some sparse dark clouds since the rain is so light and calm, and the sunrise colors on the sky give this unique and epic look for these Indian temple ruins in the rainforest. For consistency, this horizon will appear in all India levels, but with different weather and time of the day. This is possible because I made this horizon on a 3D software, so I can make changes to the look and feel and then render a new image. This level occurs early in the morning, so we have the sun rising. The next level, Temple Ruins, occurs right after this one in the timeline, so the sun will be upper in the sky, and since it isn't raining, the clouds will be more light. The same will happen to the third level, River Ganges, where we will see an afternoon clear sky. This detail doesn't happen in the original game, so it is a big change on my part, and I'm curious to know what you think of it, so leave me a comment with your thoughts. I will greatly appreciate it. In this location, I can show you a sample of how the new lighting of the game is integrated with the environment. So, as the sun is right ahead of this platform, here on the back we can notice the shadow casted by the sunlight. I tried to make the lighting of the game as much consistent with the environment as possible. This is a hard and very time-consuming task, since the engine of the game uses static light for the environment, and the light must be painted on each polygon of the level. The first time that I repainted the lighting of a portion of this level using the new horizon as a basis, I think to myself, I must be crazy. This is a very hard thing to do in all the corners of the game, but when I played the level after the lighting was done, I felt so immersive in these temples between the trees that I was convinced that the work will be a must for this remaster. And I must confess, in the end I was having a lot of fun and feeling so relaxed doing this improvement. So it will not be a big deal doing this in all levels of the game. Well, this location has so many new things to show. Let's look more closely on how the baked 3D effects are greatly improving the new high-resolution textures. Look at the ground and notice how each leaf and little branches has depth. And not only that, they also look wet. This was possible by rendering the texture on a 3D program using various images with different informations of the texture, like color, bump mapping, reflection, and specularity. All these effects were combined into an image that is the final texture. This is a similar technique used by Rare on the Donkey Kong Country franchise on the Super Nintendo. Despite the Super Nintendo being unable to display 3D games, all the textures of the game were rendered in the 3D program, then used as sprites in the game. Look at the temple walls between the waterfalls, and notice how detailed the textures look, how much information was added, like depthness and wetness. Speaking about wetness, let's look at another great improvement. I will jump to the waterfall so you can closely inspect the new water effects. Look how the water is much more convincing now. Besides the bump effect that I was talking about, notice how the water seems to reflect the environment around. Obviously, what we're seeing right now is fake. The engine of the game is very dated. I mean, we're talking about a game from '98. In that time, these fancy effects that are common on the games today, like real-time reflections, refraction, shadow, lighting, and so on, were not near possible. This new water was done in a 3D program, with all the effects rendered as a texture. In the original game, the waterfall animation has 8 frames. Now it has 32, making the animation much more fluid and natural. Okay, I think it's time to show you another location of the game, so let's move on. My goal with the remaster is to improve everything that I can, but I cannot do everything that I wanted to do. The restrictions and difficulties on modifying the game are huge, so I have to improvise. Like in this area, beside the small plants and leaves on the ground, I added another layer of plants. So when Lara walks in here, we have the illusion that this area has much more plants. This effect is called parallax. The distance between the ground and the plane of the plants is enough to make the camera perspective overlap the textures, and since the plane above the ground has a transparency between the leaves, we can see the plants below it, giving this nice illusion of movement. Here we can notice how much detail we have in the textures with this illusion of depth achieved by the fake bump mapping, like the pebbles on the ground, or on the sculptures in these pillars. Also, in the pillars we can notice another improvement. Almost all the texture distortions of the original game were fixed. Going further into the forest, we can see again the effect of parallax on the ground, with new plants that will appear on various parts of the game, giving a look much more rich and detailed. New plants were added to the environment to make the forest more lush. Going to the riverside, we can notice that in the remaster the game is much more detailed and immersive than the original game. At this forest path, we can see that it's a lot different than the original game. Besides the new light that reflects properly the environment around, there are a lot more plants that almost eliminated the flat wall plants of the original game. Also, we can see that the textures at the pillars are no longer distorted. Here, in front of the temple entrance, you can clearly notice the benefits that the bump mapping and the specularity information rendered into the texture can greatly improve the visuals. It really gives the illusion of 3D leaves and branches on the ground. On the rocky walls ahead, you can see another new texture added to the game. There are new plants hanging between the rocks. This new texture will appear on various locations of the level to give more variety to the visuals. In this temple, you can clearly see the difference of the new lighting, with much more shadows and contrast. Besides that, the texture distortions were removed, and there is a texture replacement on these walls, to better match the improvements on this area. On the temple exit, you can see another new texture on the stairs. This new texture also was added to improve the immersion, since in the original game, the stairs have a random texture used in the level, and not one specific for the stairs. All the water animation of the level was completely redone, also using the bump mapping and fake reflection technique, which gives a much more convincing look than the water of the original game. In addition to that, the water animation is much more smoother, and now has 32 frames, instead of 8 frames of the original game. The water was by far the most difficult thing to make it right in this game. First, because creating a convincing look of water using just texture animation is a very hard task to do, and also because of technical issues of the game's engine. When the texture was replaced by the new one, the water did not appear when you were underwater. I spent a lot of time trying to solve this issue, and after a lot of tests, I found a solution. I had to edit the level's geometry, adding a new plane upside down to display the texture when you were underwater. Now everything is working correctly. Remember that I said that the water was the most difficult thing to do? I was not kidding. Since it is raining at this level, you can see the rain droplets on the water. This effect took a great advantage of the bump mapping technique. As you can see, the droplets look really realistic this way, especially compared with the original game. If I get up at this tree trunk, I can show you more of the new Skybox texture. Everywhere you look, you can see something different and exciting. The colors of this texture was carefully chosen to match the look and feel of this level on the remastered game. In this area, I can show you how the new lighting matches the new horizon. So as you can see, the position of the sun is the basis of the new lighting. Notice the warm light on the waterfalls, and the shadows on the wall of the ruins. If I look behind, you can see how the sunlight affects the temple walls, and how the walls of the temple project shadows behind it. It is a very different look of the original game, so for curiosity, I wanted to know what you think of this change. Do you think that is an improvement over the vision of the original developers? Or do you prefer what we have in the original game? Tell me in the comments below. I will be very pleased to know your opinion. Let's look at this area from a different location. As I showed you previously, the animation of the waterfalls was changed, and now I have the chance to show you only the water effects of the waterfall. Notice how convincing it looks with the new effects of refraction added to the texture. In this room, I can show you a very nice addition, that is the reflection of the fire on the water. Also how the torches affect the lighting. This is the final part of the level, where you can see the plant's parallax effect again. And on the other side you will see a different angle of the new horizon. One curiosity about the horizon texture. I worked on it for about 3 months, and the texture was changed several times to match properly the level. Also, adding the clouds between the mountains and making the rainy clouds in a sunrise was very challenging to do. And after I reached the desired level of details, it was time to my computer to render the image, which takes about 24 hours to render. But in the end, I'm very glad with the results. And that's it. This is my comments about the development of this level. And this will be pretty much the same for the next India levels. I am sure that there will be more challenges to surpass in the next areas, especially London with the city environment. And I'm very excited to reach this stage of development. Now it is your time to talk. Tell me in the comments what do you think of the remaster game. What was your favorite change? There is any change made that bothers you? I would be very glad to know your thoughts. If you like my work, please give a like to this video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel to see how the next level will look. And share this project with your friends that like this amazing game. That's it for now, thanks for watching, see you in the next video.